So first of all, good evening, everyone, and thanks a lot for joining us for the next instalment of the live series Roundtable events. This is our series that connects some of the world's top engineering leaders to engage in a discussion around hot topics in the engineering world. So my name's Jamie. Hopefully you know by now I work for Amicus, and we're a very specialist technical recruitment agency focusing on JavaScript, Python, Golang, machine learning, and Rust across Europe and the US. So today's event is going to cover the topic of how you can impress a hiring manager as a software engineer. And I'm incredibly excited to be joined by some of the top engineering leaders from across Sweden and Denmark. So I'll just give everyone a very brief introduction. So first of all, we've got Erum, who's the chapter lead with Danske Bank. We have Pavel Kučera, I hope I said that right, Pavel, who is engineering manager for TwentyThree. Nicklas Nyegaard is the CTO at Freetrailer Group. And last but definitely not least, we've got Georgakis, who is the VP of Engineering over at Warner Bros. So yeah, thanks a lot everyone for joining us. And as I mentioned in our calls earlier this week, what I'm going to first of all do is just ask everyone to give a very brief kind of introduction and insight into yourself, your career to date, and the position that you're in at the moment. So Nicklas, you're in the top left of my screen, so let's come to you first.
Sure. Yeah, well, like you said, my name is Nicklas. I'm the CTO of Freetrailer Group, where I'm leading a team of 6 developers and a project manager, where we are right now working on our new platform, because the current one is from 2014 and hasn't seen much love. So we want to move from our current old school platform into the new cloud era.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much. Apo, we'll come back to you if that's okay.
Yes, hi. So my name is Apo. I'm currently working for Warner Bros. Discovery. I'm leading a number of engineering teams across US and Europe. I'm responsible, or my teams are responsible for the user acquisition part of, let's call it the payment side of things. So bringing a user in, converting the user into a paying user, and all the extras that you can get out of this, like upsells, downsells, and so on. I've gone through different roles from product and engineering, either as developer or as lead, strategy, different domains from like audio video, like Skype, to data analytics, and now in Warner, I'm working with the payment side of things.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Pavel, how about yourself?
Hi, my name is Pavel, and I'm a software engineering manager on a small team of 3 people, including me, and 1 student. So sometimes I say 3.5, and we're managing our platform in the cloud. So very similar to what Nicklas is working on, or at least what it sounds like.
Amazing. And last but not least, Erum, how about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Erum, and I'm currently working in Danske as a chapter lead, and I'm part of a channel corporate tribe where we are responsible for building and maintaining solution for corporate sectors, including small and big companies. I have a chapter which has 8 software engineers. They are based in Denmark and in India, and they are working in 2 different teams. Yes, and I'm myself also a part of a team. We're building a new mobile solution for small, big companies, which includes payments, processing, account opening, and a lot of different features. And together with that, also developing a mobile platform internally, which serves the need of different mobile applications within the bank. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you very much. So yeah, hopefully that gives everyone a bit of an insight into other people's backgrounds, so we're all kind of aware of where everyone's up to and kind of how we got to where we are today. So we'll jump straight into the topic, and the reason that I decided this would be the best topic at the moment, I obviously spend a lot of my time speaking to software engineers that are looking for work. The main thing and the main issue that I'm coming across with people at the moment is that they're involved in a lot of interview processes, they're making a lot of applications, but they're not getting as far as they would have been, say, 2 years ago when the market was a lot more candidate driven, just because there's obviously a lot more people looking for work than there was during that time. So it got me thinking about obviously, yourselves all in positions where you've done hiring, but also have been through, a number of interview processes as a candidate as well. But what can people really do to actually stand out above the rest in a market that's just incredibly competitive at the moment from a candidate perspective? And I thought that the best place to start on this would probably be to reflect on some personal situations that you've been in. Potentially some of the best interview processes that you've been through as a candidate. Has anybody got a story that comes to the front of their mind, or a particular process they can think of which you've been through personally as a candidate, which was really, enjoyable, really useful from a candidate experience perspective?
I can go first. I would say the most enjoyable experience as a candidate have been in cases where there was some type of feedback after every interview round. And the feedback was not like, okay, yeah, thank you very much, we're going to follow up with next steps. It was feedback in the form of these aspects of the discussion were positive, and we're moving in a certain direction, and so on. And the recruiter or the technical acquisition partner was basically engaged throughout the whole process. If something was not moving as fast, you would get some kind of email or some kind of notification. Hey, we haven't forgotten you. You're still in the loop, but we have problems. The pipelines are basically clogged, and so on. So keeping the candidate warm during the entire process.
I think I want to echo what Apo said there. I think it's having that, that people are telling you stuff, that you're not left out in the dark, which I guess as the candidate is one of the worst thing. I'm not a candidate anymore. Have they forgot me? What's actually the process here? And just having that, human side of it, saying like, we haven't forgot you, or even better, you maybe know the person, they're talking to you like in their office, or you're coming in there and they can tell, oh yeah, here's the process. And the faster, the better. Usually you're in a position of less power in this situation, right? You want the job and you don't have any means of really getting what you want other than pleasing, so to say, the other party.
Yeah, I imagine it's obviously incredibly frustrating from a candidate experience perspective, and like you said, Apo and Nicklas as well, it's just about knowing where you're up to, whether that's positive or negative, just understanding where you're up to in the process. And I think that's something that a lot of people are becoming frustrated with at the moment. I don't know whether Erum or Pavel, if you have anything to add at all on that perspective.
I have a story which I'm not quite sure if it will be very helpful, but the last person we hired on our team was hired because their sister knew a guy on our sales team, and the guy just finished uni and then was searching, and then through his sister he reached out into our sales team, and then through that he found our engineering team. So it was a path that wasn't necessarily very direct and obvious, but he reached out at a moment when we were looking for someone. Then he very much impressed us with his skills. So yeah, there's some element of luck and timing.
Absolutely. That's a good point to bring up as well. I'll come back to that in a moment. Sorry, Erum, I know you were going to jump in there.
Yeah, I also had an experience while recruiting a guy who applied, but then when I tried to reach him out, there was no response. Then I start hiring with another guy, with another developer, but suddenly he comes back in, and because there was some situation in the family, he didn't respond me. And during the hiring also, I also like to have some technical assignment stuff, but he was in a position where he was not able to do that. So there I understand, but from his resume and a bit of introduction, he seems really competitive. And then it turned out to be hired, and the best hire I have ever had. So sometimes it also matter of time, there is not a one scale to measure each and every applicant. Sometimes people have a lot of things going on in their personal life. So there's something I learned, that be flexible, and yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and like you say, it's bringing that human aspect into things, isn't it? And just making sure that everyone is treated as such and not just as a name and a number on an applicant tracking system. Just coming back to a point that you made, Pavel, about the referral. It's not actually something I'd kind of thought of before the conversation today, but it's something that happens quite a lot. As people that are hiring, how valuable and how important is a referral to you, and how much benefit does that give the candidate if they're the one that's being referred to you for a position?
I mean, massive. I know my last one of my last gigs in Let's Build was because I met the CTO. Having that, I know somebody that can tell me about somebody. Just you jump through the interview. You just jump to parts in. It's like, okay, I already want to talk to you. If my person I trust says he's good, you should talk to him or her. I mean, that's just a massive thing. So as much as it's maybe annoying, that networking aspect can be immensely helpful as a candidate. It really can. You know the right person, it opens the right doors. And it just you go in through the back door, so to say.
But I would like to play a little bit around Nicklas' experience here. I agree that it opens possibilities, especially nowadays that you have like massive amounts of people applying for jobs. But you need to have the substance in order to basically support your candidacy. Otherwise, all it does is basically make your connections look bad and waste everybody's time. So yes, some people are going to use that. Hopefully, people that benefit from this sort of privilege actually deserve basically this kind of like special treatment, and they're not wasting time of someone else. It also depends on the type of processes that different companies have. So there are processes that have, for example, committees that decides after, I don't know, 5 or 10 interviews. No, 10 is too much, but let's say 5 or 7 interviews, they decide. So in a committee, it's not going to be so easy, even if you have someone basically vouching for you.
Oh, I agree. I agree with you, Abo. Like you need like I vouch for you. You then step up. So it's also kind of like I know that he will be a fit based on what you have told me. So I think this candidate would be a good fit. But you need, as the candidate, still to like then show your skills and be able to go into that role and show that it's actually a fit. I can't talk about the committee. I've never been in like those huge companies, which in general it sounds horrible by committee. But it shouldn't like. Of course, there's something like that where it's by committee or something else where it's you need to have a lot of process for it.
Yeah, but I can also add to this. It's not necessarily a committee, but maybe it's a good idea at some point during the interview to introduce the candidate with the team he's going to be part of. So everyone just get a sense who they are going to work with.
Oh, for sure. I think it's one of the most important things to do is like introduce the team, not just for the team's sake, but also for the candidate's sake, right? It's kind of like, who are you going to work with and who are you potentially going to like, is there a match there? But it could be that there's no match, and that's a cultural fit is one of the most important things. And no matter of whiteboarding or technical interview can show you that. You have your gut feeling in the start, and then you need to rely, I think, personally on your team to make that judgment call. We can work with this person.
Mind if I ask, how does this really work? Because to me it feels like it's, you know, a blind date. You go in and you meet some individuals you might work with, and you have like 30 minutes, and it's not really an interview. It's more like on the soft social aspect. I've been in such a scenario where part of the whole interviewing or recruiting process is at the end to meet with some team members or all the team members, not the person that basically gets the job, but let's say the 2 or 3 candidates that are basically floating at the top. But I find it very difficult to actually get something. I'm not saying it's not working, but I find it very difficult to get something good. I mean, you might be an introvert. You might have, I don't know, problems easily bonding with people, opening up and so on. It might actually backfire, this situation.
I mean, for sure, you are at a disadvantage at that point as an introvert, which again, I would say in engineering, there's a lot of people that are introverts in engineering. So hopefully as the one hiring, you know about that, that you have to look through that. I think a funny story I can tell, one of the team members on my team, he worked there, he's worked here for a year and a half, and another guy worked there a year. He didn't talk to the other guy for half a year because they didn't have to do anything together. So there's no reason for me to talk to you. Why? Like, there was just not like, why should I ever do that? That doesn't make any sense, like logically. But now he kind of like, with the team that's in there, you can just see that dynamic. So he's opening up, cracking jokes, stuff like that you wouldn't imagine in the start. It's just not his character. So, and even an introvert can, in the right team, open up and join in on the conversation. And it's your job as the hiring manager to kind of see, okay, is there a possibility of that, or how important is that? And I mean, then look through those closed doors from people.
Yeah, and even being an introvert, a person necessarily cannot avoid the minimum communication with the people around them. So this is for sure. And this cannot be an excuse if a person is not culturally fit with the team. As far as I have seen.
In my mind, it's opening the doors for the candidate to see how do these people interact. So it gives them, it's not just a way to evaluate the candidate, but also for the candidate to evaluate the team. Like, hey, are these the people that I want to sit with for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week?
Yeah. And I think, again, these are all really good points raised, and like Apo said, it's, it may kind of put some people at a disadvantage. I think that the thing to keep in mind here is what Erum was saying earlier about, being able to flex a little bit in terms of your recruitment process. I imagine this is a lot easier in a smaller business or a startup where you can be a little bit more agile. There's not such a concrete structure of an interview process in place. But if maybe you're getting the impression that somebody may be a little bit overwhelmed by like a team meeting where they're speaking to 4 or 5 people back to back or at once, potentially setting them up with individual meetings where they can get to know people one-on-one a little bit better than working closely with. But again, it's really difficult, and ultimately, we're never going to please everyone. But I think, trying to kind of assess how people would work best and flex your process around that is definitely the way to go. I was just going to...
If I
sorry, Apo.
One last point here is that it might be much more prone to biases, this process, compared to the actual interview where you have, I don't know, an engineering manager and a product manager and an HR person sort of interviewing. And these people have gone through processes. Maybe they have calibrated the way to interact with the candidate. Whereas I'm not saying no, but it might open the door for some unforeseen scenarios, like, okay, this person comes from the same country like me, so I'm going to be a little bit positive. This person comes from a different country that we kind of hate, so I'm not going to like him, or he cracked the joke. So it can create unnecessary negative vibes. Of course, it can give positive vibes, as Erum said, yes, or maybe Pavel said, yes, I really want to work with these people because I like the chemistry or I like the energy.
Yeah, it's difficult to strike the balance, isn't it? So, sorry, Pavel, were you going to jump in there as well?
I just want to say that, yes, I think that's absolutely correct, that when we meet, I want to say that at university, we would not sign our name under exams, and we assign a number. So a lot of biases would be removed. So when we meet someone in person, we would be prone to a lot of biases. Although, I'm not quite sure how to how to fix that myself, at least.
I don't think you can to some extent. It's not natural for humans to be biased about certain things there. I think there's a lot in there in general in the process that's been removed for biases. For example, as far as I know, nowadays you shouldn't put a picture on your CV. Which go 10 years back, you should definitely put a picture on your CV. Stuff like that, which will move. Okay, it's a man, it's a woman. He's pretty, he's handsome, she's not. All of those things we want to get rid of, and then it's just a slow progress. But I don't think humans can ever get rid of that that bias for certain things that you just have. And the more you are aware of your own biases, the more you can put them at the door when you go in and talk to a candidate. So I think that's the most important. I know I'm biased towards X, Y, and Z, and I will leave that now and go in and talk to this person. And you're right, Apu, the more of a process, the more you've been through this process, the more you know how to do that. So the less biased the whole process is going to be, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that leads, oh, sorry, Erum.
Yeah, just to this, it reminded me an incident. So while I was hiring, I was a bit biased to have a female onboarded, and I had a few applicants. So I usually just give them a 2-3 minute call before starting or sending the official first round of interview, just to see the seriousness and everything, because resume cannot tell you the whole story. So that female actually was not confident enough, and during the conversation, I also realized she might also lack some experiences also. So of course she cannot make to the first round of interview, but there I was biased. But looking at her situation, I then again called her back again and give him some feedback journal, how he can contribute or he can get more experience for this. So yes, we are biased, but at the end we are also biased finding the perfect or the ideal candidate for the team who deliver the required stuff. So
yeah, it could definitely go both ways, can't it? And it's I think as Nicklas said as well, it's important that once you're aware of it, that you do everything you can to try and remove that. But again, it's almost impossible. Like you say, it's human nature. But I think the points around the CVs and stuff is kind of where I wanted to really kind of kickstart the conversation on what you look for and what engineers can do. So at this stage, let's purely just focus on, you've received a CV, either in your inbox directly, or you've received it from a recruiter who's working a position for you, etc. When you look at that CV, let's say you get 5 or 10 through for one position, what are the things that you look out for in that CV or that application that make people stand out and that really kind of catch your attention as a hiring manager?
Yeah, I can go. Yeah, so especially as a software engineers, we are naturally very diverse in terms of our knowledge and tools and frameworks. So everyone comes with a lot of diverse experience. But mainly when I look at, I'm primarily focused on the recent year of experience, because that's where it counts most, that the person have working in the latest versions or framework. So that contributes more. Even if he have experience back in the years, that might not be up to date. So I mainly look at the recent experiences.
I can echo that, what you're saying. Like, and just the keywords. I mean, personally, I don't spend too much time on the CV because there can be so many things wrong with it. Let's say you have 1,000 things on there in your keywords. Like you don't know that much. You either just like touched it and then you said you know it, and how deep is your knowledge on the specific topic, right? That I maybe need for you. So looking at the current, like the last couple of jobs, and then is the right keywords there, and then that's actually just that judgment call to say, okay, then let's have a chat, more or less than just saying, okay, that's it, that's the CV for me. I don't need that much more than that. Then
yeah, it's a good point as well, and it's something I wanted to highlight at some point during this, is because it's something that seems to happen quite a lot. So 2 points on what Erum mentioned and what you kind of echoed there, Nicklas, is about recent experience. There is still people who at the moment are putting their CVs what I would call back to front, where their oldest experience is at the top with their education and then their most recent position is at the bottom. Please don't do that. Please, I don't think anybody likes reading those. So make sure that it's most recent at the top. We're interested in what you've been doing recently and what your experience is there. And also on the keywords, as Nicklas mentioned, try and include the areas and the technologies and the frameworks that you're particularly skilled in, rather than just trying to name anything that you've ever touched, because I personally feel, and obviously you will know a lot better than I will, but I feel that goes against you more than it goes for you.
I'd like to add something here. I know that what I'm going to say is very difficult for some people or a lot of people to do, but you need to have different variants of your CV, because you might be a software engineer with backend systems, but there are different things around backend systems. So when a job application is talking about, I don't know, low latency, high availability, high throughput system, your CV needs to say these things. If it's something else about, I don't know, cutting edge technologies and so on, or cloud first and so on, make your CV. So the job you have done, depending on the angle that you're looking at it, can basically be described in a different way. And you're given maximum 3 minutes, if not 1.5 minutes for someone to scan your CV. So this 1.5 minutes or 3 minutes is your only chance to basically go to the next round, especially in cases where you have hundreds of applicants for a role, and most companies, they might not even look at below, I don't know, 20 or 30 of the applications, but there are companies that are actually a little bit more rigorous and they scan all the CVs. That's it. You get like, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, because usually the technical recruiters, they might not have the depth to basically try and figure out what the CV says and if it matches the job description. Very often the job descriptions are horrible. So job description might say A and you're actually being called to do B. And it's the engineers and the managers that are basically going to make sure that, okay, the candidate actually fits description B and not description A that we have outside. So it's a very, very badly odds game or casino game to actually make it through at least the first couple of rounds before you can actually be on the safe track that, okay, I have some decent chances here.
Just on that point, would you say, Apo, that it's better to try and adjust your CV for every position that you apply for, or just to have maybe 3 or 4 different versions based on what's in the job description and what you understand about the role?
I would say the latter.
Okay.
I mean, don't spend your time endlessly adjusting your CV. Make sure that the CV is updated and you have, let's say, 2 versions or maybe 3 versions that are talking, I don't know, technology or talking about achievements and so on, and keep these things like updated.
I'd like to echo what Apo said on tweaking the resume to the position. Then I have a friend who's been very much using ChatGPT to apply for jobs, not as use ChatGPT to just to do everything, but to do this tweaking, where he would have a series of prompts to do things for him, and then he would just fill in a few details, and then he would get this much more customized version of a resume and cover letter. So I actually think now it's much more possible, more than ever, to have a valid, very relevant resume that's tweaked for the position.
Yeah.
Can I rant about the thing? Sorry, Apple, you go.
No, go.
Like you said here, with up-to-date CV, and I agree with you there, having something that's tailored to the thing you're going through. But companies that says, please give me your CV, and then go in and say, job number 1, job number 2, job number 3, it's kind of like, why did you ask for my CV when I have to fill it in again for you? Or give me a cover letter or resume. No, like you said, 2-3 minutes, and then you have to write half a page or a page of text together with my CV, together with putting those things in. You're not going to use it. I mean, why do you require it for candidates? It's a waste of everybody's time.
I can answer that. It's because the company that's selling this software has to prove the value.
Yeah, something like that. It's just I've seen those systems, and it's just ask for CV, ask for the same thing but in a different format. It's why?
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. If I may return from the rant, also how Apo mentioned achievements. So not just having list of keywords, buzzwords of technologies, but if someone can have a brief description of the achievements that go into what was the business impact, what was the impact of the projects that people worked on. That's amazing. Beyond just going, I did some PHP, I did some TypeScript.
Yeah, It's the first thing that I always, if people ask me for feedback on their CV, or sometimes even if they don't, I'll try and provide it anyway. But that's the main thing that I would say I tell people to do, is to include not only what you've worked on, but as you said, Pavel, what was the impact of that? We don't need specifics in terms of how much money it generated for the business or anything like that, but just to give an idea of what you've actually been able to do, because in my opinion, that's what really stands out, is if you're able to demonstrate what you've done, even just through a CV. Obviously this will all come out at interview stage, but just at that first point of trying to get yourself to an interview, I think it's so important, even from the perspective of a recruiter, but especially in your case, I would imagine it's so important to be able to give some context in terms of what you've actually achieved, rather than just saying, as you said, I've used TypeScript, I've used React, whatever it may be. Awesome. I think the next kind of thing I wanted to move on to, I think we've covered CVs and the general application process quite well. When it comes to the actual interview process, now obviously this will differ from company to company and even role to role in some cases. Let's say when you first kind of meet someone, you do like an initial non-technical interview. What are the main things that people again should do to stand out? What are the things that really impress you in those initial kind of non-technical conversations?
Yeah, I think a behavior aspect, because at the end, no matter how much knowledge and experience one person is bringing to the team, it's really important the behavior perspective and the behavior affect people around you, because it matters over everything. Because technical skills, yeah, you can still measure and test it, and behavior side is not easy to measure. It's where we also go with our gut feeling. Yeah, and I have also seen that someone have given a really good impression, but later it didn't work out well. So yeah, it's a really how intuitively you are judging someone and then taking to the next level.
I think seeing the candidate ask questions, like just not me having a one-way conversation, but actually them asking back, not just about, the position, but about the team, about what they're about to do. It's kind of like I think, what was it, Apo or Pavel that said, like, it's a two-way thing here. It's like a marriage or a date, blind date, is Apo what said, right? It's, I'm committing to you, you're also committing to me. It's not just, I really need a job, please give me a job. It's, I want this job, but you also need to convince me. And that just gives me some respect, like, okay, then it's not just blah, 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 and this is the job, and this is what we do, and here it's about me, and yada, 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 and yeah, you sound good, let's go on to the next interview. It's yeah, asking questions.
And I would say, as an extension of what Nicklas says, be a little bit mindful of the content you provide and also the time. So don't go endlessly bubbling around until the interviewer basically cuts you off because you spend like 20 minutes trying to answer one question. And also try to have some interesting questions, so that show a little bit of interest. Even if you don't have to, I don't think you should go like go digging around the website of the company and try to figure out from their, I don't know, yearly statements, how are they doing? No, don't do all these things. Just try to organically try to understand a little bit the challenge that you are going to be facing, and yeah, basically show some interest for the role.
I very much echo what just Nicklas and Apo said. Having questions and relevant questions, it gives much better impression than just being there answering questions.
Yeah, and it's really important from a candidate perspective as well, because as we've all said and agreed, it's a two-way process. Ultimately, nobody wants to spend time in interviews that for a role that isn't going to be suitable either for you or the company, are not going to find you suitable. It's better to understand that at the first stage. If, for example, you have gone searching for a role and you're really, desperate to work in a team that's, let's say, 10 people or more, because you've always worked in small teams, you need to ask that question in that first interview as a candidate, because otherwise you may get progressed to the next stage. You may do a technical assessment, but realistically, you're never going to take that position because it's not going to be right for what you want. So I'd always say that if if you go into a job search with a particular idea of what your next role or what your next employer looks like, make sure you ask those questions in that first interview, and essentially don't come away from that until you've got those answers. I think it's really important, again, from both sides, to make sure that that's the case. What about when it comes to, sorry, Erum, were you going to jump in there?
Yeah, just one thing. It also depends on the personality types, just comparing how different profiles you already have in a team and what you're looking for a new person. For example, if in a team all of the members are dominant or influential, then adding similar personality might not be the benefit, right? So it's also having this mixture of different personality types. Of course, there is no compromise on the skill set and knowledge and experience, but on the behavior side, it also helps.
Yeah, you don't want to copy and paste a team, right?
Yes, because there's also become a challenge if everyone is dominant or influential at the same time. So we need a good balance where people are more keeping an eye on small nitty-gritty details, and then some are more on problem solving and to the point. So yeah,
I think you're touching on in general, like, dynamic of there's some science around this, actually, of how we want to structure a person. Like, you have the leader, you have the guy that takes the details, and the ones that's quick and stuff like that. There's some science, or at least some books around this of what we want to do. I would say it even echoes into, like you said, maybe with the skills, I will also say you don't want a team of only seniors. Like, then nothing would get done. They're all gonna just like, no, my idea is the best, and we all have to do this, or no, we have to do this. You need those different skill sets to kind of be able to, oh, you wanted to do this, I will do that because you know more than me. I just trust you, and then that learning process too and stuff. You don't want the same skill level. Nothing will get done then. Engineers love to discuss things and not do anything other than that.
I think Nicklas is venturing a little bit into the leadership aspects of managing teams, which can be an endless discussion.
Absolutely. So let's just say, somebody's passed the first interview stage, you got a good kind of feeling for them. From a personal perspective, you've seen their CV, but now it's time to really assess their technical ability. Now, again, this is going to be quite an open question because it depends on what the position is, and what seniority level maybe you're looking to bring them in at. But let's say it's a technical interview, so we'll kind of skip over a technical challenge for now, but it's an in-person technical interview or over a Zoom call. What are some of the things, again, that people can do to really stand out to you? What are some of the things that would impress you from speaking to someone at that stage?
I can try to open, and this might depend on sort of what kind of technical interview you run. But again, it's I'm impressed by people who try to understand, hey, what is it that I'm trying to achieve here. Unless the technical thing is implement this sorting algorithm, which may not be the best choice anyway. But understanding what they're supposed to do is like trying to, I guess, think about, hey, what is it that I'm doing here, so they can deliver an answer that's suited to the problem.
So like focusing more on the journey of how you get to the solution rather than the solution itself. Is that what you mean?
Or at least like stopping for a second, thinking about that, rather than just jumping into let's do this and that.
Extending a little bit on what Pavel said, I would say, with the exception of, let's say, coding thing, when it comes to, let's say, architecture, design, and this kind of things, probably you should spend most of the time actually asking questions, clarifying, getting the requirements right. Quite a lot of candidates, they read the initial requirements, they assume a lot of things, they fill in the gaps themselves, they go ahead, and then they smash their heads on the wall. Because, yes, they try to solve a problem from their own perspective and not from the product or the customer or whoever is basically your stakeholder in this situation.
So actually, to follow what Apo said there, one of the most impressive things I've seen is that they say, okay, here's my understanding of the problem, and then they explain it to me. When they have like, here's how I understand it, and then like, that's actually not exactly what I meant, but go ahead with that. I understand what you're coming from. So it's not so much the problem, but actually, yeah, like you said, Amy, that why am I doing this? What's my thoughts behind it? And then showing like a really good, you can say, product engineer, not just a developer, but a product engineer, that actually I'm here for a reason and I need to understand that. So asking in what's actually the problem, understanding the requirements, that's massive. Oh shit, you asked that question, or you explained to me what you did, like you didn't understand it. I didn't do a good job of explaining it. That's on me. But you asked completely the right question.
And I think, as Nicklas just said, it's always impressive when someone is commenting on what they're doing. So describing, this is how I understand this. So there's a commentary and not just solving without giving the background, because it shows communication skills.
Actually, also going back to what you said, Pavel, like you said that the sorting algorithm, like maybe the worst thing, right? I always try at least to say, okay, what is it actually you're going to work with? And that's the problem you're going to have to, I have a problem around. Because, yeah, okay, you did this sorting algorithm or something, and now you're going to do work on APIs. And you're never going to touch that problem. That makes no sense to me. I mean, why?
Yeah, so just a question. So do you guys bring a working problem in your interviews?
I've actually done that. Not always, but actually, again, in last build where my team was very much handling integrations, my question was around, okay, you need to build an integration into Trello, which we were using as a project management tool. And I said, no one on the development team wants to communicate with each other, and we need to communicate through Slack. So every time you move a Trello card, it needs to communicate what's happened in Slack. How would you do that? And then write it on a whiteboard and show your thought process and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's a really good approach, because it's also give a context to the candidate to understand where he's going to work and what problem he's going to solve, and also us to see if they are perfectly fit or not.
Sorry, Apo, were you going to jump in there as well?
In the last technical interview, it was with a person like without prior experience in the field, and then I didn't bring a technical problem per se, but I brought in like, these would be the types of tasks you would be working on. These would be the tools you would be working on to, like, yeah, give a bit of context for the person.
In my experience, at least with the companies I've worked with, usually there is a library of assignments or tasks, either from a coding perspective or also from like an architectural perspective. And quite often these tasks are a little bit disconnected from the things you're actually going to work, because the organization might have, I don't know, 20, 30 different domains. And you need to have something common enough for maybe 10 of these things, not all of them, but at least 10 of these things. So something in backend, it can be, I don't know, yeah, design a gRPC endpoint, for example. This might not be what you're doing, because maybe you're doing all databases and schemas and these kind of things. But you need to be able basically to understand to a certain degree, because depending on the seniority, you expect the person from a certain seniority and above to be able basically to touch these things.
Just, I wanted to go back to something that Erum said right at the start of the call about a candidate who was clearly very good, but wasn't in a position to do a technical challenge. How would you all approach it, and how would you also suggest that a candidate approaches it if, for example, the technical part of the interview is a take-home challenge and they really don't feel comfortable doing that, or if it's a whiteboarding challenge and they really don't feel comfortable doing that? How would you suggest people approach trying to get around it if they're still keen on the end position?
Yeah, so if I just share the same on the same experience, just looking at the resume where the technical skills and experience were very overlapping what I was looking for, and also keeping his personal situation, I just got some general impression during the conversation how he as a person from the behavior side, and a bit of hearing by sharing the project we are working on. So again, it's like intuitively judging again, it's the risk, right? And then at the end, listening to your gut. And he was the perfect developer I have ever hired. Yeah, and I'm still cannot figure out what the scale, if I need to, kind of write down an equation or steps. I don't have anything. It was just very intuitively judging him.
I'm sure I would have lost that developer. Erum. I would not. I'm sure of that. I think if for me, it's fair enough. You don't want to go home and do something. I think it's important to. It's fair for the candidate. I expect you to use 2 hours. I should use the same amount of time, same amount, but I need to be committed to. It's not fair just putting all of the burden of the work over to the candidate. You also need to kind of do your part of it. But I don't think I could ever get past them saying like I don't want to do any sort of whiteboard or mirror, or you have to display something for me. I don't think I can't say with certainty that I would not let it through, but I'm pretty sure I would have lost that candidate. I'm sure.
I think sorry, go on.
Yeah, but it also depends, looking at the previous experiences. If the previous experiences are really solid, then there is a margin, of giving the trust to the person.
Yeah, maybe like you said, past experience. Maybe if I could talk with their former employer, right? Maybe that's like, okay, that could maybe be a thing that like what they are a known person or stuff like that. I think I heard a story at some point, that developer or the creator of Brew to the Mac, he was declined a job at Apple because he couldn't do some sorting thing, or at Google, which is kind of like, what? That makes no sense to me. So maybe something like that would be, okay, you have a name for yourself. I can see your work. Maybe you have a really good GitHub thing, which I could use at that point. That's putting a lot on my shoulders, certainly, that I have to go in and do that. Which, why would I do that if I have 100 candidates I need to go through? If I had 5 or 2 or 3, maybe I would be inclined to do that because I need to fill the position. So maybe scale here is also a matter.
I would extend a little bit on Nicklas' last comment, especially in Europe or Scandinavia. It's extremely expensive to hire and even more expensive to fire a bad candidate. Therefore, I'd rather not fill in the role and maybe even lose the headcount than get this individual that is going to impact the team because the person needs onboarding, the person needs ramping up, basically drags down 1 or 2 engineers until this person reaches a certain level. And okay, so what? We have 3 months, 6 months probation period. There is still costs around. So better not fill in the role, better negotiate with the product stakeholders to reduce, the backlog or the priorities and so on, rather than bring someone in that basically causes more potential problems. I'm not saying no, but be super careful when you do this kind of exceptions.
Yeah, I think from a candidate side of things, as we've all kind of said, it's important that while you don't kind of completely give up on what you believe in, but sometimes in a situation like we're in now, and we have been throughout the course of 2023, really, that you may have to go through a process that isn't your ideal process, but it may mean that you get that position that you really want. It may be that you have to do a technical challenge rather than going in and doing a technical interview, or vice versa. Try to keep your options open as much as possible, and don't kind of get rid of any opportunities just based on that one process. But then at the same time, if you are doing that, then as Nicklas said as well, it's important that the hiring manager or the person reviewing that also puts time into that to give you feedback. And if they don't, then it's on you or your recruiter that's representing you to go and get that feedback, because nobody should be spending time either completing a take-home challenge or in a technical interview to then just be either told no or not to hear anything back, or even worse in some cases to hear back but not receive any feedback. Just say, we've hired someone else, or it's a no at this time. People need to know where to improve and how to improve. I think we've gone through quite a lot of information on the interviews and where people can really look to improve maybe in their chances. There's a couple of kind of slight things that I just wanted to touch on that are more kind of side topics. Going back to the CV conversation, something that I've spoken to a lot of people about over the last couple of years is personal projects and GitHub profiles. I've worked with some clients in the last 18 months that essentially say to me, you know, we need to have that along with their CV. We need to see some of their personal projects. We need to see some things that they've worked on previously. What's your personal view on that, and how important, if at all, do you feel that is at an application stage?
I think that's a hard thing to ask. One thing, you're expecting people to maybe do it in their free time, which some people, me personally, I love to develop. I will do it in free time. I will do it for free, almost. But some people, it's a job. They don't do it when they're off. They spend time with their kids, family, go to the movies, do all kinds of things. Don't expect them to maybe do this 24/7. And two, a lot of the projects you may be working on are like in a company, they're private. You can't share that information. So you can't share that code. You can maybe, I think maybe they're showing something now that you are contributing to something on GitHub. But what if it's a private Bitbucket or maybe GitHub Enterprise that doesn't show that thing? I don't know exactly. So as much as I see the benefit of being able to show that, for me, it's not that important because I know it's a huge burden on the candidate's shoulder to be able to lift that task. I mean, so.
Yeah, I have similarly conflicted views where if the person can bring that GitHub, I mean, and shows code, it is something to work with. But I have a hard time requiring people to do that, because it's also amazing when people have other hobbies, because that will grow them in a different way that might that will have benefits into working life as well. Yeah, so it's conflicting views.
I mean, let's also be honest, maybe that the things you're doing when you do it one person as a hobby thing is not what you're going to do at work. You don't need to have the same structure, the same naming schema. You can write whatever. It's just you that have to remember it next time. So why would I follow these strict guidelines that I know when I need Pavel to review this, so he needs to understand it when it's just me? I can call it foo. I know what foo means in the end. No, I don't, but I believe I do. And that doesn't matter at that end. I don't need the fancy GitHub action that builds the thing and have all of the 100% task coverage, yada, yada, right? I mean, it's a hobby project. That's the whole thing. It's a hobby. It shouldn't feel like work. And now I need to make it work so I can impress to get hired for a job so I can do more work. That goes against the whole thing, I think, as a hobby thing.
I would just add that in my experience on the recruiting side of things, I've never ever seen anyone who had such a link, such a pointer to some portfolio actually being mentioned during the hiring decision process. So maybe a developer that had the coding interview with his candidate, maybe read the CV, clicked the link, actually did something with that, but it has never basically reached the point where the decision actually took this parameter into consideration as well.
Okay, so it's essentially then the kind of consensus that I'm getting is, look, if you do a lot of coding outside of work, you do work on a lot of personal projects, then great, put them on there, but it's not going to ultimately be the blocker to you getting an interview or not getting an interview. Definitely not.
I'm just wondering if this is because we all work in Scandinavia, which has some pressure on work-life balance, and it would be very different asking people outside of Scandinavia.
It's a very, very good point, and it's one thing I was going to ask, because obviously the majority of my recruitment career has been spent focusing on the London market, and I've very quickly noticed that it's very, very different to Sweden, to Denmark, for that exact reason. So I think it's a really, really good point. There does seem to be a much bigger, and so there should be, it's a good thing, a much bigger focus on work-life balance, and maybe that's potentially a reason why we don't see as many GitHub profiles, personal portfolios on CVs. So yeah, something I'll keep in mind, and I appreciate the feedback on that for sure. I think from my perspective, I feel we've covered all of the areas that I was looking to go over. Is there anybody else that's got a point they'd like to raise, or a question maybe they'd like to ask anybody else at all?
I think maybe a topic we haven't touched on, Jamie, is the position, recruiting agency and something like that.
I wasn't prepared for this. Okay, hit me.
Because it's you know, it's one of the things that we hired recently, and one of the things that I personally don't find that interesting is sifting through CVs and candidates and stuff like that. So I can see a massive benefit of having an agency. At the same time, I usually hear like I think it was Apo that said, like, they don't understand well enough, or maybe use it, they don't understand the topic well enough. So I kind of see that as a double-edged sword. I don't want to maybe do all of that screening, but the people doing it, are they also qualified enough to actually see what I'm looking for? I think you said right up, or like, here's A, but we actually want to do B. And yeah.
It's a great question. So the main thing for me is, as you said, ultimately, I'm not a developer. I probably never will be a developer. I'm not intelligent enough, to be totally honest with you. But the main thing that I look at when I'm recruiting for a business and when I'm looking to find a particular skill set is I understand the companies, for example, that people have worked for, and the type of products that they've been working on. And again, I'll always focus on the achievements that people have got. So what have you actually done that's tangible? What are some of the things that you've personally implemented? If a candidate is saying a lot of we did this and the companies did this, I'll try and hone in a little bit more on what they personally did and what they were able to bring to the table. Ultimately, as I said, if someone puts a line of code in front of me, I'll never be able to read it. It doesn't mean anything to me. My job is ultimately to, as you guys said, sift through the CVs, pick out the people, create a shortlist from that, and then essentially be able to line up the requirements with what the company is looking for. Going back to what you referred there and what Apo said earlier on about people maybe not being qualified to do that, it's a really good point. That's the reason. I don't want this to turn into a sales pitch, by the way, but that's the reason why I really enjoy the way we do things at Amicus. Each consultant is given a particular technology. We don't just, you see a lot of people that are software development recruiters. Now, I work in JavaScript. I don't know how that's even possible. I mean, I have a hard time keeping up with all the different tools and frameworks that are released on like a monthly basis. Someone told me that Angular got to version 15 or 16 recently, and I was just mind blown. So we really focus on those particular technologies. We don't recruit for PHP roles, .NET roles, Java roles, etc. We really kind of focus on one particular technology, which means I understand who the best businesses are in that space and what kind of products they're working on. But ultimately, my job is to create a shortlist of what I think are qualified candidates, and then once they're actually in the process, I'll help them to be guided through that process. But essentially at that point then it's a partnership between me and that particular hiring manager to make sure that we're getting the right people. Hopefully that answered the question and wasn't too rambly.
I would even argue that probably the best role for either a recruiter, an external agency and so on is to bring a maturity and the process and make sure that certain biases are controlled for and so on, and be sort of an accountability partner towards the business side or the engineering side, and make sure that yes, the job description is A and you're actually looking for someone to do A and not B, as the example I gave earlier. And on the first couple of rounds, depending on the volume of CVs, to sit next to an engineering partner and see what the engineering partner is actually shifting to the side and what CVs are actually being. So basically learn what the business actually needs and not just blindly follow. Of course, it doesn't mean that everybody does that, but in an ideal world, this is what they should be doing.
Yeah, a lot of people do, and it's frustrating to say the least. So I totally get that. And as you said, I think one thing that's really important is to regularly catch up with the people, as you said, Apo, that are rejecting CVs as well. As you said, it may be a case that they haven't fully understood the requirements. There's been plenty of times, throughout the last kind of 4 or 5 years that I've been recruiting where I've rejected 3 or 4 people after having a first conversation, after reading their CV. I've then spoken to the client a week or 2 weeks later and said, I found a lot of people have experience with this, but not with this. And they'll actually go, well, that's great. That would probably be even better than what we first discussed. So it's really, really important. And what should happen is that your recruiter is giving you regular updates on the market, because essentially we, are in that space 7 to 11 hours a day speaking to those people, so we can give kind of good feedback on what the market is, where people are excelling and things like that. So they should definitely be feeding that back to you, and if they're not, then probably time to get a new one, I'd say.
Plus, a recruiter knows the marketing theory and can target companies that have similar skill sets with you, because a teeny tiny number of people are actually out looking for jobs on their own.
Exactly.
For the vast majority, you need to go, I'm going to go to Klarna because I know payment systems. These guys, they have like very, mature tech stack. Or I'm going to go to company X because I know I'm going to find COBOL and so on. So these are the skills that a recruiter or a TA needs to bring into the game.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Has anybody got any other points that they'd like to raise before we get wrapped up?
Maybe one comment on the interviewing or the company side. Some things that companies should improve is things around how they treat the candidate when it comes to the amount of information they provide for the roles themselves, because quite often the descriptions are very generic. Even if you find like the right candidate at the end, the person thinks I'm going to be working with something, and then it turns out you're actually working for something else because things have changed. So try to give this kind of signal to the candidate that, yeah, we're going through a transformation right now. Things are going to change a little bit, but the teams are going to be the same. The challenges are going to be the same. The opportunities are going to be the same. So, because usually, especially in Scandinavia, people have, let's say 3 months notice period. So from the time you signed until you move in, yeah, a lot of things can change.
100%. And again, it's really important that candidates, if you're not given that information, to push for that from your hiring manager that you're speaking to, or whoever it may be, to understand exactly what the role is going to consist of. Because as you said, Apo, 3 months in software engineering could be the world of difference. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. Really appreciate everyone's time. Hopefully you've all found it useful, and anyone who's going to watch this afterwards, anyone who's in a job search or thinking about it soon has got some really good kind of feedback and tips on how you can really stand out from the crowd and how you can successfully get through an interview process as an engineer. But yeah, thank you everyone so much for your time. Really appreciate the expertise you've brought to the table, and hopefully I'll get to speak to you all again soon.
Likewise, Jamie. Nice talking to all of you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. See you all later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.